coming up, plus Michelle Obama at the NAACP yesterday complained about crumbling schools, complained about dessert, praised the founders, not of the country, the founders of the NAACP, and she urged even greater intensity on the part of African Americans. And I'm sure many of you are shocked to hear this, because many of you expected the country to be at the end of racism and bigotry, discrimination, with the election of our first black president. We were supposed to be post-racial and post-partisan. And now we got the new Black Panthers talking about killing cracker babies, not being condemned by anybody, by the way, at the highest levels of the regime. Michelle Obama at the NAACP doing a keynote urging greater intensity. Something's not right. Something's not right. I mean, it should be, shouldn't these people be happier than ever? I'm being serious. For the first time in over 200 years, a black man runs the country. His wife, a black woman, is first lady. Nobody ever thought that day would happen, certainly not 20 or 30 years ago. And here it has happened, and yet the rancor, the anger, the outrage, the divisions in the country are greater than ever. How is that? Why is this happening? Why is there not optimism and happiness? If not happiness, why not contentment? Why not a sense of accomplishment and achievement? It is a major achievement for the country and for the Obamas. Why the anger? Why the balled up fists? Why the rage? Why the continual and widening gap of divisions of people in this country, both racially, ethnically, sexual orientation, whatever? We are a divided nation. People are losing faith in the Messiah. First Messiah that I'm aware of who has had less than 50% approval from the flock. Most messiahs get 100% approval from the flock. This Messiah down below 50% now, which is not a good sign for his second coming in November. And Obama himself ought to be outraged. He should be furious. He didn't spend $1 trillion to end up having disgruntled foot soldiers. He wanted disgruntled Republicans. He wanted disgruntled people who were not voters of his, but he didn't want a bunch of angry foot soldiers on his side after spending $1 trillion. Let's take a look at some of this polling news today from the Washington Post. First, Mark Thiessen, the fading embers of Obama's coalition. The president has also angered many of the key Democrat constituencies he needs to keep control of the House and Senate. And now Democrats are blowing furiously on the fading embers of their electoral coalition, hoping to stave off disaster this November. In the process, they are abdicating their responsibilities to govern, failing to pass a budget or any of their annual spending bills, while using their executive and legislative powers to appease their special interests instead. That's the kind of stuff you usually only read about Republicans. But here's the Washington Post. The fading embers, they're blowing on the embers, failing to pass a budget. And the reason for that is they don't want you to know what kind of tax increases are coming. They don't want you to know exactly how rotten they intend to make it. And a budget battle publicly held with all the hearings and so forth would clearly illustrate things the Democrats don't want you to know. Mr. Thiessen writes, take organized labor. Unions are incensed with Obama and the congressional Democrats for their failure to deliver on key priorities such as card check legislation. To repair the breach, the Democrats have turned their legislative agenda over to the unions. And that's one of the reasons they're in trouble. But why in the world are the unions unhappy? For crying out loud, the Jones Act was not waived so that help from foreign countries to stave off the oil disaster was not allowed in. The unions were bailed out in the process of buying General Motors and Chrysler. What in the world? This is the thing that amazes me. What in the world these people have to be unhappy about? What in the world do they have to be angry about? They want the destruction of the U.S. private sector. They're getting it. They want the buildup of the public sector. They want never-ending pensions, never-ending health care plans. They want universal health care paid for by somebody else. They're on their way to getting it. Why are they unhappy? Yet they are. And one of the reasons they're unhappy is because they systemically are not capable of happiness. Liberalism and happiness do not mix. They do not go together. Have you ever seen one? Have you ever seen a robustly happy liberal? Even the wealthiest, richest of these people, like Soros, they're still burning with rage over things. Take your average Hollywood actor liberal. Are they happy? No, they're running down to Venezuela. They're running over to Haiti. They're running down to Cuba. They're talking about how rotten things are here. They're talking about oppression, how they're in jail, figuratively. They're not happy. And yet they're in the midst of more destruction that they have wanted than they have ever dreamed they would ever see. Now, one of the things that is contributing to their misery is obvious, and that is it doesn't create a utopia. These people have grown up, they have been raised, they have been taught, they've been educated to believe that their beliefs bring about universal love and happiness and contentment and equality and sameness and no discrimination, and nobody ever dies and nobody ever gets sick. But if somebody does get sick, they're treated and it doesn't cost them anything. It was supposed to be a panacea, a virtual utopia. And they are seeing right square in the eyes that their utopia cannot happen. That there's no such thing. That their policies, in fact, when fully implemented, lead to abject poverty, destruction, misery. And they didn't have to wait for Obama. They could have simply looked at Detroit or any other city or state that has been run by liberals unchecked, or any country. Why are liberals unhappy? Let's look a little deeper into this. One of the reasons why liberals are unhappy, and there are many, they're agitators. Their leaders are agitators. Their leaders are not happy. They're always stirring things up, agitating, community organized. They're always unhappy about something, even if they have to lie about something. They're always unhappy. There are two kinds of people in the world, folks. Those who choose to be governed and those who choose to be ruled. Liberals are obviously in a second camp. They want to be ruled. They'll never be happy until there is some bureaucrat to tell them how to tie their shoes and everybody else how to tie their shoes, how to do everything in their lives. Until there is a bureaucrat or a statist in charge of everybody's life, no liberal will ever be happy. It's another way that liberals are like Muslim extremists. They want to be told how to live down to the smallest detail, and that's not good enough. Everybody else must be told how to live down to the smallest detail, and everybody must be compliant, and everybody must be obedient. And if we do not obey the central planners who tell us how to live our lives, from what we eat to where we sleep to how much we sleep to all of this, then there's misery and unhappiness. So at the root of it, liberals are unhappy because they can't stand freedom. Freedom is a threat. Freedom threatens their desire for total control and obedience. They don't want freedom for themselves. And the reason why freedom is failure. Freedom allows you to succeed, but it also allows you to fail, and nobody wants to fail. So people who are afraid of failure are easy marks for liberalism. And you cannot have failure unless you have freedom. You cannot have success unless you have freedom. So freedom, a big problem, because it stamps people as successes or failures, and the libs don't like it.